Okay, in this talk, we deal with more defenses um, for the theist position. Okay, it's not necessarily an attack on atheism. It's just a defense of a theist position. Yeah, the reason why we take the theist point of view. Now, most atheists would assume that the Almighty, uh, thinks like a human being. So an atheist will say to you, if the Almighty is perfect, why did He design human beings which are not perfect? The simple answer to that um, that I can give is basically it's the problem we're gonna have with AI once we switch it on, once it becomes it reaches singularity and becomes intelligence, artificially intelligent. So basically, if you create AI and you make it indestructible, yeah, what's to stop AI from destroying you? Yeah, the people who are designing perfect machines that are more perfect than human beings, are putting us at risk of getting annihilated by those machines. Now, the Almighty, if we use the parable that you call the Adam and Eve story, He didn't create Adam and Eve with all knowledge. He didn't make them indestructible, so that later on, when their progeny become, well, like you atheists are, um, you won't be made of metal, and you won't have all wisdom, and you won't be able to conquer the Almighty. So this is where the omniscience comes into it, all knowing. He created uh, human beings according to Scripture, um, but He didn't make them indestructible or all knowing. In fact, He had to make sure that they're not all knowing. Yeah. So when they ate from the tree of wisdom, He had to, because obviously we would later on become like the atheists are, people who wish to conquer God, to conquer the Almighty when they find Him. And obviously, if you're someone who's omniscience, you see the future and the past at the same time, you know that this point will come. But then why create human beings in the first place? And an atheist said this as he was trying to debunk the theist point of view. He said this, that one theist approached him and said, how comes the universe is so fine-tuned? And in his defense, he said, well, we are the ones who give meaning to that fine-tuning. Yeah, and he was right. But when I thought about it, I said, but that proves our position. Because when you look at Darwin's theory of evolution, we're the ones who give it meaning. Without us saying that it means this and that, without our conscious mind being there, it's abstract, it's meaningless. We're the ones who give it meaning. We're the ones who give meaning to numbers. So whether the universe is fine-tuned or not, we're the ones that give it meaning. They are universes that we can't live in, yeah, but there might be beings who can live there, and they give the universe a different. They give numbers and amounts of stuff different meanings. So we're the ones who give meaning to things, and that includes the theory of evolution. We're the ones who give meaning to it. Without us there wouldn't be any need. It wouldn't mean anything. If you look at a cat or a bird and you try to explain evolution to him, it doesn't mean anything, because he doesn't have the need to actually define evolution. Yeah. And another classical atheist point of view is when it comes to choice, and they say that there is a lack of choice. If you look at it, how do you put it? If you look at it logically, but this goes back to the Almighty that I'm defining. Yeah, the way I'm defining the Almighty, He's in a state of superposition. Because for you to be omnipresent, yeah, we know for a fact that the electron is omnipresent around the nuclei of the atom. It's everywhere in that shell at the same time. When you measure its location, you lose its momentum. You don't know how fast it's traveling or where it's going to next. When you know how fast it's traveling, you don't know its location, and the only thing you can say is everywhere at the same time in that shell until you look. So the concept of omnipresence has been proved by science. To say that a particle can be in different places at the same time, that's omnipresence. So if you don't have a problem understanding omnipresence, you shouldn't have a problem understanding an Almighty who's omnipresent. But you understand from the concept of uncertainty principle that the only way you can be omnipresent is if you're in a state of superposition before wave function collapse. So if the Almighty, scripturally, for us to say is omnipresent, it means he's in a state of superposition. Okay? So the Almighty is everywhere at the same time. Yeah? And the atheism is a method that can be deployed by theists. Because when I designed my virtual quantum computer, I tried not to know not to measure, to destroy the information so that it can't be measured. Yeah, and that allows things to be in different places at the same time. Yeah, so the Almighty somehow does that, yeah, to allow himself to be in many places at the same time. I don't know how he does it. It's the Almighty. So we accept atheism, yeah, as a way of not knowing the Lord, to allow him to be everywhere at the same time. But that's if you use it as a method. Yeah, but to actually believe in it is it's a subset of theism, just like agnosticism is a subset of gnosticism, because to know how to be an agnostic is and yet gnosticism is knowing, yeah, with knowledge. So to know how to not know is a subset of knowing. Yeah. So which brings me back to the choice argument. So if choice is made when we're in superposition, I know it's a bit complicated. I won't break it down. I don't want to reveal too much, but there is choice, because first of all, for you to make a choice, you assess, if you're reasonable, you assess the evidence at hand, and you choose a direction. Yeah. To make a choice without assessing the evidence at hand, then you have no choice. I agree with an atheist, you have no choice. But to make a choice when you've assessed information and decided a path, choice does exist. Choice exists after an assessment of information. If you consciously assess information, then you do have a choice. But if you make a choice without consciously assessing information, you don't. So I choose to fall in love, but some people do not. Yeah, you overcome with this feeling that's driven by your emotions, your endocrine system, and you just can't help it. Yeah, but when you overcome with that feeling and you say, whoa, put it on pause, let me assess all the information. Can I choose to carry on feeling this way? You can actually choose not to carry on feeling that way. Then you have choice. You say, okay, I've fallen in love with this woman. Is it feasible for me to initiate a relationship with her? Then you find she's with another man, or she's with 5 or 6 other men, and you say, well, that is not really feasible, but a relationship can happen. And you try and reduce your feeling of love. You can talk your way out of it. People do NLP to take away people's choices all the time. I can convince you that you're a fish, and you go around doing that on stage, acting like a fish on stage. So you can manipulate yourself, self-manipulate or self-hypnotically change the way you feel about love and things like that. But you do have a choice, but it only happens after an assessment of information. The choices you make before assessing information, like falling in love and things like that, that does not prove choice, and you don't have choice in those matters. Yeah, choice only occurs after an assessment of information. Yeah. So with an atheist, agreeing and not agreeing too. Yeah. So I like to explain that the Almighty I define is I don't know if they're gonna bug my phone to switch it off. The Almighty I define is a deity that is constantly in superposition. Yeah, you can't cause the Almighty to collapse like a wave function. You can't. Yeah. So the Almighty would be visible everywhere at the same time, but invisible. Yeah. Which brings me on to the other topic about ones and zeros, there-ness and not there-ness. Yeah. Something and nothing. These are two states of existence that are in superposition. Yeah. I don't want to go into it too much because once you see something, you're not seeing nothing. Once you see nothing, you're not seeing something. So it's like you collapse as soon as you realize something, you collapse it and nothing disappears. As soon as you realize nothing, it's like you've collapsed it and something disappears. So that's why you can't really collapse the Almighty. You can't. If you see something, then nothing will disappear, and then all there is will be the Almighty. If you don't see him, then everything is there. So the only time you can see the Almighty is after you leave the universe and you're dead, and that's a different topic. But these are just defensive arguments for my theist point of view and my gnostic theism point of view, because I don't believe in atheism and agnosticism as independent ways of thinking. Those are subsets to gnostic theism. Yeah. You have to know how to be an agnostic. You have to know the Almighty to not believe in him. So, in fact, if you know something, if you know not to believe in something, you have to know it was there for you to choose not to believe in it. You know it's there. You assess the information. If there's information about it, it's there. So you know it's there, then you choose not to believe in it. So that's a subset of theism. Yeah, so that's my defense. And sometimes I use atheism as a methodology when I'm criticizing, when I'm trying to bring the will of the Almighty into this world. I try not to realize the Almighty so that he can be there in terms of preserving the wave function in its state before collapse. Yeah. So the Almighty is in that state. Yeah. It's not a wave function collapse. It's in a superposition. That's the word I'm looking for. So you try to preserve the superposition, the omnipresence of the Almighty by not realizing the Almighty. It's a form of atheism. Yeah. But it's controlled. It's as a subset of theism. Yeah. So that's all I wanted to add.